Showtime!
Ladies and gentlemen, please make your way to your seats.
Showtime!
Please make your way to your seats. The show is about to begin.
Showtime!
Let the magic begin.
Dark Oxygen.
I'm excited to talk about
this. Is brand new Futuretech stuff. They just found oxygen at the bottom of the ocean. What's going on?
Yeah. So, by the way, the way this happened was this guy was measuring oxygen levels at the bottom of the ocean. And what he was noticing was that the oxygen, in certain scenarios, the oxygen levels were going up. So, this is crazy. For 5 years, he thought that his instruments were not working properly. 5 years of doing this until finally he realized that something mysterious was happening. So he found out that these minerals were producing oxygen at the sea floor, which completely debunks science current that says oxygen can only be created through photosynthesis, which doesn't surprise me. We're always constantly learning new things. So he was performing experiments at 4,000 meters depth and detected steadily increasing oxygen over 2 days, reaching over 3 times the normal levels. So the source, it implicates the role of these polymetallic nodules, which are rock mineral deposits scattered across the seabed. I don't know if you have a picture of it, but it just looks like these little rocks on the seabed, right? And so oxygen production correlated with the nodule abundance, and nodule-only experiments also exhibited productions. So how does this happen, right? What they're hypothesizing is that the nodules could act as quote-unquote geobatteries, and we'll get into that in a bit too. Within the metallic layers, flowing electrons may create voltage differences. This electricity splits, well, again, according to their hypothesis, could split seawater into hydrogen and oxygen via electrolysis. So obviously we're going to have to do more analysis as needed, but the nodules appear to behave electrochemically, which is really, really cool. But oxygen production varied greatly, but reached rates rivaling sediment oxygen consumption, which is pretty cool. So boosting oxygen availability could influence deep sea biogeochemistry, carbon storage, and even life. But it also introduces the concerning possibilities that nodule mining could disrupt the sea floor and things like that. So there's a lot that needs to be explored. There's a lot more experimentation that needs to happen. But this is really cool.
Yeah, I couldn't find a graphic of what you're looking for. Sorry for those people watching as I was scrolling through. It says here that given the high voltage potentials up to 0.95 volts on the nodule surfaces, they hypothesize the seawater electrolysis may contribute to this dark oxygen. How confident are the researchers that the oxygen production is linked to the nodules acting like batteries?
Yeah, so based on the evidence presented in the study and the white paper, it seems like the researchers are reasonably confident that the nodules play a key role in the observed dark oxygen production, but they also acknowledge that there's still open questions. Oxygen production correlated with nodule surface area in the experiments. Nodule-only lab experiments also exhibited oxygen production, but the caveats here are the exact mechanism and electrochemistry behind the nodules acting as geobatteries still needs to be confirmed. The energy force driving electron flow in the nodules hasn't been identified and still needs to be identified. It's also unclear how factors like sediment coverage may influence nodule electricity generation. So there's a lot more work that's needed to understand, but they're pretty confident. There's evidence that points strongly to these nodules playing that key role.
How might deep ocean oxygen production impact ocean life and health? Could it lead to more abundant ecosystems? Could we be living at the bottom of the ocean at some point?
It's a good question. So more oxygen availability could allow for expanded habitats, higher densities of aerobic organisms on the seafloor. Areas with higher nodule abundance and more oxygen production could become biodiversity hotspots in the abyss. Increased oxygen may alter seafloor food webs and enable larger body sizes. So many deep sea creatures are stunted due to oxygen limitation. Higher oxygen could increase rates of biogeochemical cycles, nutrient regeneration, organic matter decomposition. It could create refuge for oxygen-dependent animals as oxygen minimum zones expand in intermediate depth. However, too much oxygen may stress or overexpose adapted anaerobic microbes on the seafloor. So in general, the oxygen seems likely to provide major benefits for deep ocean abundance. But again, more research is needed. I don't think that we could leverage that, or at least based on current technology, I don't think we could leverage it. But as far as ocean biology, absolutely.
What do you think? Now that we know this, are we going to start harvesting these things? Are we going to start mucking with it? And is that going to affect the ecosystem as a whole?
I think so, because this is natural. Like if we disrupt something that's natural, the loss of seafloor oxygen that support the expanded biodiversity and mass, it could return to a more oxygen limited conditions, declines in population in that habitat, shifts in community composition, slowed biogeochemical cycling rates, altered carbon storage dynamics on the seafloor, reduced energy availability for seafloor ecosystems. Like it's just negative. And that's something I'm worried about, right? But the scale of the consequences would depend on factors like the extent of the nodule moduling, how much it disrupts seafloor integrity, how much oxygen levels decline, things like that. But it definitely would make an impact.
So I'm going to throw you some curveballs, because when you start thinking about this, it just starts to make me think.
Yeah.
All right. So if there's oxygen at the bottom of the ocean, does that mean where we find water and other places, there's potentially oxygen creation outside of photosynthesis on other planets?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say yes, because of electrolysis. Electrolysis is part of physics. It's a method that creates byproducts from an electro whatever. Well, I can't think of the word, but I think there is. But again, I'm not sure how abundant these nodules are and the chemical composition and the makeup of these nodules. So I think without further experimentation and analysis as to what the makeup is, how they're actually doing this, I would say there's definitely a possibility, but the percentage of that possibility, it would increase based on more knowledge of the nodules themselves. What do you think, Craig?
Well, I'm interested. I think I don't know how much these create. Like, this just sounds like, all right, if we can supercharge these and make a little nodule farm where we find water somewhere else and start creating natural oxygen on those planets to create atmospheres, at least in controlled areas, like inside buildings and whatnot, we'd have whatever happening. It sounds like an interesting way that we haven't really thought about before. I'm a little wondering about the phenomenon of generating electricity and splitting seawater at that level. Is this something unique to deep ocean, or is this similar process that occurs elsewhere?
Yeah, it's a similar process. It's electrolysis. So you could do this. The only problem is I don't have the knowledge enough to know how much oxygen electrolysis could create. There was actually, I think, an article that we were going to discuss. No, that was from carbon dioxide cleaning. But there was one we were talking about, I think, a stainless steel that they were using for electrolysis. And I think depending on the materials that you use, who knows, you could create oxygen, but you need a fuel source. So you need salt water in order to create it, right? So the question is what's the output from the input, and is it enough to warrant the use of that for creating oxygen?
The bottom of the ocean is a whole new freaking world. I say that because we get all those weird fish with the knobbies and the fake outs and the glowing lights, and that the general public doesn't know a lot about, but I imagine oceanographers and deep sea people know a lot more. How does this discovery change our understanding of the deep ocean as an environment as a whole?
Yeah. So just before we get into that, do you know, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I only know it because I just did a quick search. Do you know how much of the ocean floor has been mapped using modern high resolution technology?
I'm going to say 10%.
Actually, I thought it was around there. They're saying it's 26.1%.
All right, more than I thought.
It's a lot more than I thought. I thought it was in the single digits. But anyways, to go back to your question, so the discovery of dark oxygen does provide a shift in how we view the deep ocean environment, because it challenges the long-held paradigm of the deep sea floor as just an oxygen-starved sedimentary sink, right? So the oxygen production adds a photosynthesis-like process, but it's fueled by geochemistry of mineral deposits rather than sunlight. So in some ways, it does make the dark abysmal plains more similar to surface waters with natural oxygen generation. But deep waters, they still have huge pressures, cold temperatures, no sunlight, and limited food input. So that makes it very distinct from shallow zones. So it's an exciting find, but the discovery doesn't fully transform our understanding of the deep as a very alien environment. It remains a unique habitat despite intriguing parallels to surface oxygen generation.
Any last words on this one?
No.
You sent me a link about Agent GPT. Do we want to talk about it?
I haven't explored it, but that's just, we were talking about the next iteration of AI and the advancements. There's a website, I have to mess around with it, but we could talk about it next time. Maybe you and I can mess around with it, but
perfect.
We'll create agents to do things for you. So if you go to the website right now, you can do like plan a detailed trip to Hawaii. So it's similar to an AI output, but it can deploy agents automatically for you. So it's really interesting to explore.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look at that.
Yeah.
All right. So if people are looking for startup funding, where do they go?
Come to me on LinkedIn, John Irwin, JONIRWIN. Come find me on LinkedIn. Happy to talk shred, happy to talk grants, tax credits. I've got over 16 years experience behind me. But for small businesses, startups, and who need coaching, where can they go, Craig?
Well, they can go to TorontoStarts.com or to startupcoach.ca, find out more about our programs and the work we do. On TorontoStarts.com, on the main page, we got events and workshops coming. We've just announced starting in August. We've got a bunch of people already signed up for your 10 grants in 10 minutes. One already. Yeah. That's great. We're doing how to develop your sales strategy. We're doing the best offense is a good defense with legal, how to defend yourself legally as a startup. And we're doing express ops where we're automating different systems. And our first one's going to be about automating lead generation. How do you get leads? Yeah. How do you automate it? How do you get them? So you got, that's one of the things startups come to me all the time and say, where do I find leads? Where do I get people? And we're going to show them how to do that. And if you automate that or use the tools we have to do it, you're going to get me doing some stuff. You're going to get John doing some stuff, and Bob Minos will join us, and he's going to show us how he can do some stuff at the same time. So
cool.
Different approaches, and we'll love to get feedback from people. So that'll be fun.
Love it.
Oh, and don't forget Startup Drinks TO, August 14th.
Part of Futurist.
Blockchain Futurist after party. I don't know if you noticed their AI lineup looks incredible this year. They might have to add AI to their.
Honestly, their lineup alone looks incredible. They got so amazing speakers, but yeah.
Yeah, and I've got a couple interviews lined up for while we're there, and we'll talk a little bit about getting other people. We have a few platforms I want to interview as many as we can. If it's great to have them on Futuretech or Silicon Scoop, that's great. But otherwise, we'll talk to them on any one of our other platforms, whatever makes the most sense.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Check out the Silicon Scoop podcast at TorontoStarts.com or on any one of your favorite podcast apps. We'll see you all soon.
Thanks, guys.
Wow, that was amazing.
See you later, alligator.